Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Thursday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. We're all prepping for a busy offseason around the NBA. What exactly do the Lakers have to offer other teams? That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday. No matter how or where you get your podcast, this one's always going to be free and never behind a paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is, of course, where over 35,000 subscribers to the channel are all hanging out and getting themselves ready for a summer of action, Andy, according to Rob Pelinka. You know, we've talked about a lot of teams that could be very busy in one form or another, whether you're talking about the Dallas Mavericks having to reform their team now that they have Cooper Flag there. That could make Daniel Gafford available. Certainly
PJ Washington. I mean, I would say it could make everybody other than Derek Lively, I suppose, could be available, but it would have to be a pretty good offer because he's perfect to pair alongside and grow with Cooper Flag.
Right.
You know, I suppose
for Kyrie and all that.
Yeah, I suppose it is possible, although I think unlikely, that Dallas could decide to just completely pivot altogether towards just building the team that they want around Cooper Flag now from the ground up. And maybe I don't think it'll happen. But
they're too. But either
I think you can make an argument for doing it, particularly since you don't even know when Kyrie's going to be back, much less the type of player he's going to be. They have an incredibly unbalanced roster. They don't have a bad roster in terms of talent of any kind. But what I do think makes Dallas kind of an interesting comp to the Lakers, and we don't have to go down the rabbit hole of what Dallas is going to do because that's for Nick and Isaac and Bias to figure out. But I do think there are lessons to be learned from the Lakers in terms of how far you can go with unbalanced talent. And the Mavericks roster right now, particularly with Kyrie's availability quite TBD and quite in flux, they are hella unbalanced.
Well, yeah, they don't have any guards. I mean, they are woefully short on ball handlers and guards and playmakers. The Lakers have plenty of playmaking. They just don't have enough rebounding and interior size. I mean, I think, it's we'll get into some of the priorities and stuff over the course of it, but like you look around the league and Dallas seems like they'll be active. I agree with you. I think it would make no sense. They're too good to completely tear it down right now and start rebuilding, I think.
I can see the logic for it. I don't expect them to do it, but I can see the logic for doing it.
San Antonio is in prime position. I saw, a report today. Jonathan Givony, does Draft Express for ESPN, says, he's hearing that they're going to take Dylan Harper and draft him and put him with Castle and Fox in the back court and go on with women. I don't buy it for a second. I mean, maybe, but that you're making yourself pretty guard heavy there. You've got a lot of assets that at some point you might need to use. Oklahoma City could be busy. One team we haven't talked a lot about is Houston. They could be very busy this offseason. Boston now, for reasons that Celtics fans won't like, could be very busy. Milwaukee with Giannis have some decisions to make depending on what Giannis. So there really could be a lot of activity going around the league. And I think we talked about it for Wednesday's show. Like both of us agree, more activity probably helps the Lakers. And the reason is any individual player that comes on the market in terms of trade, that you need to acquire in a trade, it's going to be really hard for the Lakers to outbid. And if they can really only outbid teams once. Like if you look at it, here's what the Lakers have in terms of draft assets. They do not have their pick this year belongs to Atlanta. Yeah, it goes to Atlanta. Next year they have a pick, but they can't trade it yet. They can't trade it until that draft. They have a 27 first rounder that they cannot trade. And
because
so
there's protections on it right now,
right.
so it may not belong to them. It is not theirs to trade right now.
Correct. So really, they're only allowed to trade one first rounder in either 2031 or 2032. They have a second rounder they can trade. They do have 5 pick swaps, according to Bobby Marks at ESPN, that they could put into a deal. But pick swaps with the Lakers, depending on what you are giving up and what you're getting, aren't necessarily going to be super appealing, because if you think you're giving what the Lakers need to finish, second, third, fourth every year in the West, then you're talking about a pick in the mid-20s probably. So pick swaps don't have as much appeal. And then in terms of players, who among players do you think has real value just in sort of intrinsically as a player? Not talking about contracts, not talking about expirings or things like that. Who would you put in that category?
I think Austin definitely has value. I think Dalton Knecht has value. I think Rui has value. I don't think Gabe Vincent has a ton of value other than for a team that just needs some stability. Honestly, we were talking about Dallas before. Dallas is actually a team that could maybe use Gabe Vincent right now. They do not have any real point guard play to speak of. And again, you don't know when Kyrie's going to be back. They're actually a team that might want more than Gabe Vincent to give up, say, Daniel Gafford, but it doesn't change the fact that they could use Gabe Vincent. I think
sure. And because they have PJ Washington and they've got Lively and they've got AD and Kyrie eventually coming back, they don't need, they don't need Shea. They don't need like a point god. They need I think they need solid point guard play, which I would say is probably something between Gabe Vincent and an all-star caliber point guard.
I think they need something.
I don't think they need a first team all NBA caliber point guard.
They may not need a first team. Sure. I mean, and they're not going to, it's hard to get one of those guys anyway. My point, I'm not looking to go down Dallas's rabbit hole. I'm saying he has, I think Gabe has some degree of value for a team that might just want some veteran experience, particularly as an expiring you don't have to commit to. But I think he's about half player value, half expiring value. Maxi Kleber is all expiring value. Jared Vanderbilt, until he can show he can stay healthy for an entire season, he is a distressed asset. And be a useful playoff piece. Like, it's just, if he goes to a lesser team, a team near the bottom of the conference, it's entirely, it's like Vincent to me is at least somebody who might have some appeal because you've seen him in the playoffs, with Miami and all that, like having some good moments. Like, he's a little bit more of a proven guy. I agree with you. I think Reaves and Knecht are basically it when you're talking about pure sort of players. I would put Rui. I would put Rui in that category.
Is the problem with Rui, and Reaves has a little bit of this, but I think he's just more well regarded. Rui is both, his expiring deal is both potentially an asset if you're a team that wants to open up cap space, although I happen to think that expiring contracts are less valuable now than they used to be. But it's also problematic. Like, if you want to acquire a guy like Rui because you like him, that's one thing. But you then are putting yourself in a position where if you give up value or something that's valuable to you to get him, then you have to be in a position where you really want to re-sign him. And who knows what that market is going to look like. So, like, it's a little bit of I almost think he'd be more tradable if he had a second year on that deal, just because he had a really nice season this year. We know what his flaws are. We know what his strengths are. He certainly showed $17 million worth of value in this NBA that we currently play in. It's not nothing that the Lakers have, but it's not tons.
They are in, I think, a better place than they were last offseason, where we both stressed to our audience over and over and over, don't expect them to do much. We understand that they need to do a lot. They are not in a position to do much because they have so little that they can offer. Like, other than the pick that became Dalton Knecht, and even that's like a mid first level pick. And it was pretty clear outside. I mean, regardless of what you think of it, outside of you're getting an all-star, somewhere between all-star and all-NBA caliber player, they're not moving Austin Reaves. Again, agree, disagree with the logic, whatever. That had been established. From there, you had Gabe Vincent, who needed to show he was healthy. Jared Vanderbilt really needed to show he was healthy. Christian Wood. Rui had another year left on his deal. Like they are in a better place than they are right now, just because more expirings can give you a certain degree more maneuverability than guys you're not sure about that you have to pay for multiple years.
Oh yeah, like Vanderbilt being on the last part. I mean, like I said, Rui might have a little bit of value given coming the season he's coming off of if he was locked in for one more year. Vincent and Vanderbilt, no question, being expirings helps.
Well,
I'm sorry, not Vanderbilt. Vince.
Maxi.
Sorry, thank you. Maxi,
yeah.
Yes.
Vando has multiple years left.
Yes, that makes him a problem. I want to explore Knecht a little bit more in terms of value, and then get into the major question that all of this accounting that we just went through really raises. So we'll do that next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Wayfair. The days are getting longer. The weather's warming up. People are spending more time outside, which means it is the perfect time to refresh your balcony and your outdoor space. And whether you're talking about a big backyard or a tiny spot that you just like to make your own, Wayfair has everything you need to make it feel more like you. Wayfair's massive selection of outdoor essentials makes it easy to transform any space into your ideal summer setup. From comfy conversation sets to sleek dining tables, outdoor decor, they've got it all, and at prices that fit your budget. I love the mixes of styles that they offer. They make it super easy to find pieces that match your vibe. Like it feels like your personalized space, an extension of yourself, but without spending a fortune, especially since the delivery is both free and hassle-free, even for the big stuff. So shop a huge selection of outdoor furniture online this summer. Get outside with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home.
So the guy I'm curious about here is Knecht. Like, when you think about like Reeves' trade value, I mean, he's still even with the contract, even with the idea that you are putting yourself in a position acquiring Austin Reaves that you're going to need to pay him. He's very well regarded around the league. And a lot of teams, I think, would want him, even with that understanding that he's not going to be cheap anymore after next year. What about Knecht? Like, do you think this year, because the Lakers didn't play him a ton down the stretch, didn't really play him at all in the playoffs, defensive issues were apparent. He's not super young for a guy coming off his rookie season. On the other hand, definitely showed potential as a shooter and a scorer, which is a skill that never goes out of fashion in the NBA. What do you think his rookie season did for his value and perception around the league? Do you think you could trade him again for Mark Williams? You know, a Mark Williams caliber player. You understand what I'm getting?
No, the answer is yes. I don't think Dalton really hurt himself over the course of the season. I thought, handled the situation with the Mark Williams trade getting rescinded and the awkwardness of it. And, you know, I mean, this is truly unprecedented stuff that even a guy like LeBron, who has been there, done that, he's got no perspective and advice that he can offer. I mean, forget the fact that that would never happen to LeBron. LeBron has never even been around anyone that it's happened to. So, like, that's a difficult thing to wrap your head around. And I thought Dalton reacted to it really well. Yes, he didn't play in the playoffs, but I'll be honest, there are enough people questioning JJ's decisions during the playoffs that I don't, whether you think it's justified or not that he didn't play Dalton, I don't think people are going to automatically take Dalton not playing as a seal of disapproval that you should take to the bank. I think the larger problem with Dalton, to be honest, is he makes so little money as a mid-first round pick that he becomes very difficult to make the centerpiece of a trade by himself of impact. So then you start getting into who else do you have to take on,
right?
Who you have to start matching money. It's extremely complicated for the Lakers with the aprons, yada, yada, yada. You can't do much. You cannot do a ton with Dalton by himself unless somebody like, and I'm just throwing this name out because I think they make relatively equivalent salaries. A guy like Nick Richards becomes available in Phoenix, or Day'Ron Sharpe. I don't know if they make it. Well, he's a restricted free agent, but Nick Richards, I believe, is on the last year of a deal, roughly what Dalton makes. Somebody like that, but it will be very difficult to do much with Dalton by himself, which means
I don't think though, but like to me, I don't think that's a huge deal because ultimately you'd be the issue is more like, could you use Knecht as like Knecht and expiring for Gabe Vincent? Now you've got, give or take $17 million or whatever to work with. Would Knecht be enough of an appealing figure to make it so you wouldn't have to include maybe that first rounder that you have to get a decent player? I think with the right team, I think contending level teams probably less so, because they would see a lot of the same runway issues where we got more roster guys, it's going to get to the playoffs. Are we going to be able to trust them defensively and all that? A team like Charlotte, where they tried, like those types of teams, I think absolutely would. Like I say, like,
let me give you an example.
I think I'm basically agreeing with you that I think his rookie season showed a lot that teams, I think, would still find appealing in ways that would make it so the Lakers don't have to they could get some value by including Knecht in a trade.
Let me put it this way. I can't say with absolute certainty that the Lakers could manage to get, say, Nick Claxton from Brooklyn using expirings and Dalton in lieu of a pick. Like, I can't promise that would happen. I haven't poked around enough to even learn. But if you're asking me on its face, do I find that far-fetched that you could manage to make it work with Dalton as opposed to a pick down the line? No, I don't find it far-fetched.
Yeah, it's plausible. And I think you're talking about relative. I mean, Nick Claxton, I saw a comment today, as we're recording on Wednesday afternoon about Claxton. Like, you guys need to stop it with Claxton. He's not that good. And I agree. He's a flawed player. But the thing about it is, they don't have first of all, he's probably the second or third best center that's even plausibly available. Right. So you can only deal. It's like swim in the pool that has water in it. And so
we're not throwing out ways for the Lakers to get Jokic. It's not going to happen.
Right. And they would
Wemby seems like a long shot. What do you want us to do?
Definitely have to include the pick if they do that.
But I mean, what do you want us to do? We've been saying for 2 years the Miles Turner ship done sailed. Like, I tried to make it happen when it seemed like a real opportunity. Yeah. It doesn't make sense anymore for Indiana.
And but the issue, so like the Lakers can only acquire what's available to them. But it's also, you have to understand, like, you have to sort of to continue using water metaphors, fish with, plausible bait. Like, you can't go out trying to catch stuff when you don't have the right tools to go do. That's why we're taking this inventory. And the biggest reason I ask, Andy, is because the Lakers have a fair amount of needs. I think it starts at center, but they could use more. I think they probably, if you were at the back of them, a little more point guard depth. I think they definitely could use more depth on the wing. I think they need rebound. Yeah, they definitely. I'm trying to do sort of these in like reverse order. They definitely need significant rebounding help, and they definitely need interior defense, center helps, and vertical threat at center.
They need some of those forwards that don't feel more like fours than threes. Like, they need, we've been saying this for years, for whatever reason, and I know one of the reasons is they're hard to get, but the Lakers every year seem extremely low on forwards that feel much closer to a three than, a slightly oversized two, but still overmatched. or a 4 that would be too slow for the assignment. Like they need an honest to goodness, old fashioned wing. And clearly they need more center help.
They need more center help. And some of these skill sets overlap. Hopefully your center helps you with your rebounding and all that.
Sure.
But like, could you get a true power forward? Like the other part of what you're saying there is like, how about a 4 that could be confused for a 5 instead of a 3? You know, like same principle as like the 3 that's really a 2. And so, you know, you hope there's some overlap in some of those skill sets and whatever, but you're not going to be able to likely acquire high-end people at all of those needs with what you have to work with. So the Lakers have to do some real prioritization when they do so. And it raises an interesting question to me, like center, I think, is the most important need.
Yes.
Is it more important to get a center, perhaps a lesser center, than like a better wing? Like, let's say for whatever reason, you were able to get a better wing where you needed it a little bit less and you had to compromise more at center, had a weaker center rotation. Or you could get a player, use the same assets to get a center that's maybe the best you can do, but it isn't as good as the other guy that you understand what I'm getting at? Like,
yeah.
Do you prioritize the position and the need or the quality of the player that you're getting back? It's I don't think it's necessarily an easy question to answer. So I'll give you the break to think about it. Do that next. You know, like in the NBA drafting, they always say, best player available. Just don't try to draft for need because needs change. And that can be true, I think, when you're talking about larger roster construction. But the part of the value of having Luka is you kind of know what your needs are going to be in the long term. You can now sign, trade, all that stuff for need. Do you prioritize need over raw talent, skill, etc.?
I think it depends a lot on what type of raw talent and skill you're talking about, and also what the gap is between the guy at the position of slightly lesser need versus how you're actually filling it. Like the Lakers,
and like how important the need is. Like if you have a list that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1's the most important, 5 is the least important. You can acquire a great guy who fills 4 and 5. That's probably not the best use of your assets. You need to concentrate on stuff that's more important.
At this point, the Lakers, unless you are talking about like, I don't even know who this would be because it's going to be hard to push. It's going to be hard to make it worth pushing LeBron back to more minutes at the 3. But I was going to say, like, unless you can just find an all NBA caliber, all-star caliber true 4, the Lakers do not need more 4s on this team. It would be very difficult to justify on a team that already has LeBron, Rui, DFS as currently constructed.
I was about to say, right. As currently constructed.
I can only go by what we have.
But I agree with you. But what you could do is take out Rui for a 4 that maybe solves some of your rebound and interior defense questions.
Potentially. But I mean, like, I want to avoid an exercise in talking about this that becomes completely esoteric, where we're talking about variables and hypotheticals involving unnamed players that are not, like, after a while, we're starting to just question how many angels can fit on the head of a pin. Like, it becomes stupid. I'm talking about based on what we have right now, what we know about this team, some of these guys are likely, if not 3/4 of them, likely to be on the team this coming fall. So, because if for no other reason, then the Lakers are going to have to be careful about overcommitting too much when they may have much more flexibility in the summer of 2026, especially depending on what LeBron decides to do. Mm-hmm. But like, as far as like centers go, I would say a center that you feel confident can be on the floor for 20 to 25 minutes, that would likely be a higher priority over most wings, unless you're talking about an upper echelon wing, like just throwing out a name, like an OG Anunoby style wing, a guy that's not an all-star, but he is
really
really damn good at the things that he does. A guy like Josh Hart, for example, who plays much bigger than he actually is, and provides more rebounding than a lot of centers around the league. Like if Josh became somehow available, depending on like what happens with the Knicks moving forward, like I could see an argument for bringing in someone like him over most centers the Lakers could get, because Josh is just so much better than a lot of those other guys. But short of a comp like that, I think the Lakers really do need to be looking at filling center depth, center needs, a lot of which revolve around bringing out the best version of Luka and protecting against the worst version of Luka. Mm-hmm. I think it's pretty clear Luka needs, on a variety of levels, a big man supporting him. He needs it.
It makes, that vertical threat, that lob threat makes such a huge difference in what he's able to do and how teams have to defend him. He can throw every pass that's available. And so if just the presence of that threat opens up the floor for Luka, for the Lakers. It can, it puts defenses on their heels that much more. And so, if you need and they don't have to be, Wilt Chamberlain in the post. They don't have to be a Hakeem Olajuwon. They need to be able to set really good screens, roll hard to the basket, read plays well, and get up and dunk.
And protect the lane. And protect the lane defensively. Be a decent to somewhere between decent to solid and above lane protector, rim deterrent, all of that. Like which
what you're talking about here is kind of a rich man's Jackson Hayes.
Well, I mean, look, we keep going back to Nick Claxton because I think he's going to be available. Nick Claxton is not an elite center, but he fills he checks some of those boxes. And for what it's worth, the last time Nick Claxton played for a good Brooklyn team, he's a pretty good player. Yeah. Like he has not been as good the last couple of years, but he's been swimming through a lot of garbage. Like he's been like in the Star Wars trash compactor for a couple of years. You can't expect him to be that good.
Right. The tricky part about this too, especially when you think about the center.
I'm not even trying to push Claxton, by the way, as much as I'm trying to make people recognize potential limits and also potential upside.
Two best centers I think that are going to very likely be available are him and Gafford. And, I would prefer Gafford, but, it's not, Daniel Gafford's not a perfect player either. There's a reason why, despite some very gaudy statistics at different times over the course of his career, he's never really been able to carve out a true starting role, certainly not on a good team. And he's about to get paid too. So if you acquire Gafford, it's got to be with the understanding that you got to be willing to pay him probably 25, 28
about 20 pounds heavier than Claxton. So that helps.
Oh no, I would much prefer Gafford over Claxton, but neither guy is, I think Gafford comes closer to some, but either way, you probably need two guys.
Oh, you definitely need two guys.
I don't think you can go into the season and say like, we'll get Claxton and and another, Claxton, and we'll then, pair him with bringing back Jackson Hayes, or Gafford, bring back Jackson Hayes, and we're good to go. I think you can bring back Jackson as a third center if he wants to, but you need to find two guys. And so again, can you do that with the trade assets you have? Do you do one center with our stuff and then go into the free agent pool, try to find a minimum guy that works, whatever it might be? That's just an upgrade over Hayes. But they are just going to have to really prioritize carefully, and then be very careful about skill sets, because the people that they do get have to fit, because they don't, once you start using these assets, now you're really out of it. You really have to make sure what you get works with what you're trying to build, which means JJ and Luka and Rob and I guess LeBron to some degree, but everybody's got to be on the same page.
Well, but this is also why I've mentioned this a few times. And again, with the caveat, I sincerely do not believe LeBron is obligated to give the Lakers a pretty steep discount to come back, to take like $15 to $20 million, opt out, take $15 to $20 million off the contract that he could opt in, make around 30-ish million to open up a full mid-level exception. I truly do not believe LeBron is obligated to do that. But the reason why it would be important if he were willing is because if you can get that full mid-level exception, you can break that up into a couple players.
Yeah.
And then if, say, like, do I want Clint Capella because he's going to be a free agent, my starting center? No, I would rather have Claxton or Dan Gafford ahead of him. But as a backup, that would be a great option. Clint Capella playing like 15, 18 minutes a night. And he is maybe somebody that you could get for the mini mid-level, the taxpayer mid-level exception. But if you could somehow break up a full mid-level to where you could offer Clint Capella like 1 year, $8 million, that, because he's going to take a steep fall from like the 20-ish. Nobody's going to pay him the 20-ish mil that he's coming off his last contract. But the extra few $1 million could make a difference in the type of player that you could get to back up the center that you may end up trading for.
I think, like, even somebody like, this series with the Knicks and the Celtics, a guy like Luke Cornett has had some good minutes or whatever. Yeah. If you had 7 million or 8 million to play around with, you could make a much more compelling pitch than with 4 or 5, 5.5, whatever it's going to be. And, a guy like Cornett isn't a starting caliber center in the league, but he's a quality backup, and he is
likely a better backup than Jackson Hayes.
Oh, he definitely is. And he's got, a notable skill set, like, in terms he absolutely positively is a better shot blocker. He's not exactly polished offensively, but he's a better rebounder. He's just a little bit better player than Hayes. Is he, bouncy? Not necessarily, but the guy's got, again, good rim protecting ability. He has a skill set that you could use, and might just be a little bit priced out if you only have $5 million to spend. Right.
So again, that's why
it makes a difference.
That's why this question matters. Again, LeBron's going to decide to do what he wants to do, and he should do what he wants to do. And if he feels like, I don't trust the front office to make it worth my while, or I don't think the free agent crop out there is good enough to make it worth my while.
I'm leaving 20. Are you saying I'm leaving $20 million so we can go get Luke Cornett? Is not going to sell him.
It may not, but look, I'll be honest, and I said this at the time, I thought LeBron's reported wish list or willingness list of players that he was willing to take that big pay cut for was largely performative nonsense, because it would have required James Harden to himself take about a $20 to $30 million pay cut. Jonas Valanciunas never made a ton of sense for that. That felt more like an ask for AD. And I don't blame Valanciunas. If he wanted to go somewhere where he could play more, then he likely would have with the Lakers. And I mean, I guess the Lakers tried their best to overpay Klay Thompson, but it thankfully didn't work out.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And so, we'll keep exploring some of these issues. Leave us questions, leave us comments. Let us know what you think about where you would prioritize LA's assets and money, what you think about the players that they have to offer, which guys out there, as we start to get into the offseason, you would prefer most. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 35,000 subscribers to the channel. We'll see everyone tomorrow.